Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank the chair, my colleagues, and also our witnesses here today. The chemical industry plays a significant role in the U.S. Supply chain, manufacturing supply chain. Nationwide, the chemical industry generates $639 billion in annual revenue, and the U.S. is the second largest global producer, producing 11% of the world's chemicals. Specifically, in my district in southeast Iowa, the chemical industry provides 2,250 direct jobs, generates an additional 5,480 jobs in plastics and rubber products, and pays $179 million in wages. The current regulatory environment of the Environmental Protection Agency would put thousands of jobs in my district. And when people sneer at that, let me say that as a country, when we build wealth, we clean up our environment. Every nation that has created more wealth has had a cleaner functioning environment. And just exporting environmental risks to China or other countries does not absolve us of any responsibility towards cleaning the environment, a better environment, or better health for the people in the United States or the world. We had last month a hearing on the EPA's proposed particulate matter 2.5 standard that would decimate manufacturing in our state. Now we're looking at the EPA's concerning regulatory actions in the chemical industry that would ultimately lead to prohibiting the domestic manufacturing of chemicals. These chemicals are an essential everyday products we use today, including your cell phone, your car, your electronics, medical devices, as already been alluded. Specifically, the overregulation of ethylene oxide and formaldehyde would have significant impacts on our nation. The FDA estimates that 20 billion medical devices are sterilized using ethylene oxide. This includes surgical kits, IVs, anesthesia masks, heart valves, pacemakers. How many people would die from not having access to medical care because we don't have the devices that they need? These aren't just my concerns. In fact, the FDA stated in public comments to EPA that ethylene oxide may be the only method to date that effectively sterilizes and does not change the device during the sterilization process. I'm a former operating room nurse. I know all about sterilization and the sterilization methods that we have. The FDA went on to state without ethylene oxide, there would be significant sterilization shortfall with no commensurate sterilization alternative. Shortages stemming from a lack of ethylene oxide would have significant impacts on patient health and access to critical medical devices and patient care. How many people would die? How many people would die? Now, I'm also an ophthalmologist. And as you know, devices such as intraocular lenses used to treat cataracts in seniors and other populations is not only sterilized by ethylene oxide, it can only be sterilized with ethylene oxide given the delicate materials it's made of. How irresponsible is it to put forward a rule or regulation when there is no alternative to the sterilization method now? And absolutely we want to prevent cancers. Absolutely we want to clean the environment. But there is a risk to that, and what we're talking about is that risk and that benefit. So I understand that cataract surgery utilizing intraocular lenses is the most performed surgery in the United States today, with more than 8,000 surgeries per day. So what would be the impact on America's seniors if ethylene oxide were no longer produced in the United States? Mr. Whitaker?
It would be devastating. You mentioned intraocular lenses. That's one, and a very important one. It would essentially shut that down. But that's not limited to that type of surgery. It would be across the board for everyone in surgery. As I mentioned earlier, about 40 to 50 million surgeries a year. And the vast majority of products, 95% of products and surgical kits, are sterilized using ethylene oxide. I think the numbers speak for themselves. The hospital system could not operate with that level of impact, and it's not worth that risk. We're not opposed to a regulation. We think you can do it right, and we can work with the EPA to get there. But you have to be thoughtful, and you have to be science-based, and you have to be focused on the patients as well as the rule itself, and that's why it's so critical, and I thank you for raising it.
And I think both parties, both Republicans and Democrats, through the pandemic have realized that we need to diversify our supply chain from China. So in doing this, what would this mean for the capacity and supplies of critical medical technology needed for patient care?
Yeah, if the rule goes into effect as it is today, it would be very difficult from a supply chain standpoint as well. Shortages are almost certain to happen and happen quickly. And companies would have to relocate facilities overseas in order to sterilize at the level they need to. When you have to do that, then you have to ship product back into the country, and the supply chain challenges are more complicated.
Or maybe patients would have to go
Or
abroad
people would
for
go
their
elsewhere
cancer
to get them.
treatment?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. With that, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields.